whispers in metal. The workshop air shimmered with metallic dust as Toran Vesh ran his fingers along the fractured edge of the crystal-infused armor. 3 standard months stranded on Nixara, and still the sight of their technology left him breathless. Not that he'd admit that to his captors. "You have 6 rotations to restore it," said Commander Vex, his translucent skin pulsing with blue warning patterns. "The Sovereign's daughter cannot appear at the alignment ceremony with damaged regalia." Toran nodded, keeping his eyes down. "I'll need specialized tools. Whatever you require will be provided." Vex's voice carried the characteristic melody all Nixarans possessed. "But remember, human, tampering with royal armor is punishable by dissolution." After Vex departed, Toran examined the armor more closely. Unlike standard Nixaran battle plates, this ceremonial piece contained intricate lattices of living crystal, each filament thinner than a human hair. The damage wasn't merely physical. The resonance patterns within the crystal structure had become discordant. "Fascinating," he whispered, reaching for his scanner. "Is it?" came a soft voice from the doorway. Toran spun around, nearly dropping his tools. A slender figure stood watching him, wrapped in a simple cloak that couldn't quite hide the elegance beneath. Her skin had the opalescent quality of high-born Nixarans, but with undertones of amber that caught the light as she moved closer. "You must be the human craftsman," she said, tilting her head with curiosity. "I'm Ilara." Toran's mind raced. "Ilara Zinth, the Sovereign's daughter." He bowed hastily. "I didn't expect a personal visit from the owner." "It's not merely ownership," she corrected, approaching the workbench. "The armor and I were connected." She reached past him, her fingers hovering above the damaged section. The crystal responded instantly, pulsing with soft light. "Biosynchronous resonance," Toran murmured. "I've only read about such technology." Ilara's eyes met his, eyes of deep violet with flecks of silver. "Can you repair it?" "I believe so," he said more confidently than he felt. "But I need to understand how it interfaces with your physiology." A slight smile touched her lips. "That's why I'm here. The armor responds to emotion as much as physical structure. Previous craftsmen never grasped that." As Toran carefully lifted a damaged crystal segment, Ilara gasped. Her hand flew to her chest. "Did I hurt you?" he asked, alarmed. "No," she whispered, looking surprised. "I felt warmth. Whenever anyone else has handled my armor, it's been cold, clinical. This was different." Toran set his tools down carefully. "Perhaps we should proceed more systematically. If you could describe what you feel as I work." Ilara nodded, her expression suddenly guarded. "Proceed, craftsman. But understand, this interaction cannot become known to others. My father believes Nixarans and humans should remain separate in all things." "Yet here you are," Toran observed quietly. "Yes," she replied, her armor glimmering in response to some unspoken emotion. "Here I am. Resonant frequencies. 3 rotations into his work. Toran had made significant progress with the armor. The crystalline lattice had begun to reknit itself under his careful ministrations, but each adjustment triggered unexpected consequences. Across the palace, Ilara would suddenly feel warmth spreading across her shoulders, or a tingling sensation down her spine, sensations that left her distracted during diplomatic meetings. "You seem absent today, daughter," Sovereign Talon observed during the council gathering. His towering frame cast long shadows across the circular chamber as light filtered through the transparent ceiling. "Your mind wanders from matters of state." "Forgive me, father," Ilara replied, straightening in her seat. "I've been monitoring the repairs to my ceremonial armor." The Sovereign's bioluminescent patterns flashed with skepticism. "A servant's task, surely. The human craftsman uses unusual techniques. I find them educational." Later that evening, Ilara slipped away from her chambers and returned to Toran's workshop. She found him hunched over her breastplate, his rough human fingers delicately tracing a pattern across its surface. As he worked, the armor emitted a soft, pulsing glow that matched the rhythm of her heartbeat. "You're still here," she said, closing the door behind her. Toran looked up, dark circles under his eyes. "The resonance patterns are complex. I've never seen anything like it." "What do you mean?" She moved closer, drawn to the warm light. "It's not just responsive to your emotions. It anticipates them. He gestured to a display showing oscillating waves. See these patterns? They shift before you even enter the room. Elara placed her hand near the armor, not quite touching it. The crystal reached toward her, sending tendrils of light across the gap. On Nixara, we're taught that emotion clouds judgment. Royal children especially must maintain perfect control. Yet your armor contradicts that philosophy, Toran said. It thrives on emotional connection. Perhaps that's why it was damaged, she whispered. I've been suppressing myself for so long. Their eyes met across the workbench, and the armor between them flared with sudden brilliance. Tell me about Earth, Elara said abruptly, changing the subject. Is it true humans touch each other freely without protocols? Toran smiled. We do. Physical contact is how we express connection, comfort, sometimes even healing. Show me, she said, extending her hand palm up, breaking every rule of Nixaran propriety. Hesitantly, Toran placed his palm against hers. The contrast was striking, his sun-darkened skin against her opalescent luminescence. The moment their hands connected, the armor released a harmonic tone that resonated throughout the workshop. Neither noticed the door sliding open, nor the shocked expression of Krell, the royal armorer, as he witnessed their forbidden contact. Your physical structure is so different, Elara said, fascinated by the sensation. Yet somehow familiar. Maybe we're not as different as your people believe, Toran replied softly. Across the palace, Sovereign Talon studied reports of unusual energy surges coming from the human's workshop, his suspicion growing with each passing moment. Breaking protocol. You've been compromised by the human, Krell hissed, cornering Elara in a private corridor. His elongated features twisted with disgust. I saw you touching him. Do you know what would happen if the Sovereign discovered this transgression? The craftsman is repairing my armor, Elara replied coldly. Whatever you believe you saw was part of that process. Krell's skin flickered with patterns of disbelief. I've served your family for 3 generations. Never has repair required such intimacy. After he slithered away, Elara hurried to Toran's workshop. She found him testing the armor's responses, his movements precise and measured. We've been discovered, she said without preamble. Krell saw us yesterday. Toran's hands stilled. What happens now? Father will have you sent to the outer rings if he learns of our interaction. She paced the small space, crystal dust swirling in her wake. The armor must be completed before Krell can build his case. It's not just the armor anymore, is it? Toran asked quietly. Elara stopped pacing. No, she admitted. It's not. That night, as Nixara's 3 moons aligned in rare conjunction, casting pearlescent light across the crystalline landscape, Elara returned to the workshop wearing a simple attendant's garment. I've disabled the surveillance, she said. We have until morning. Toran had finished the final calibrations on the armor. It hovered above the workbench, suspended in a field of energy, more alive than ever before. Its surface rippled like water when Elara approached. It's beautiful, she whispered. It responds to your truth, Toran said. Not the controlled persona you show your father. Elara placed her hand on the breastplate, and the armor seemed to sigh, molding itself to her touch. On my world, we believe connection weakens us, makes us vulnerable to pain and loss. On mine, we believe connection is what makes life worth living. Toran moved behind her, close enough that she could feel his warmth, even with its risks. She turned to face him, their bodies nearly touching. Show me more of these human connections. Toran hesitated, then gently placed his hands on her shoulders. The contact sent a cascade of sensations through both of them, and through the armor, which began to pulse with rhythmic waves of light that matched their accelerating heartbeats. This is why the Sovereign fears humans, Elara murmured. You make us feel things we've forgotten. As Toran drew her closer, the armor between them transformed, its surface becoming fluid, adaptive, enhancing rather than separating their connection. His lips found hers in a gesture entirely foreign to Nixaran culture but instinctively understood by Elara's body. Neither of them noticed the subtle alarm triggered in the Sovereign's private chambers nor the guards dispatched to investigate the unusual energy signature emanating from the humans' workshop. Their world had narrowed to this moment, this connection, a bridge between species that the armor amplified and celebrated in cascades of luminescent color. Crystal fractures. Dawn broke over Nyxara's crystal spires, refracting into thousands of rainbow patterns across the palace walls. Toran woke with a start, alone in the workshop. Elara had left before first light, but evidence of their night together remained. The armor glowed with unprecedented brilliance, hovering in its energy field with new patterns etched into its surface. The workshop door slammed open. Commander Vex entered, flanked by 6 royal guards, their weapons drawn. "Human Toran Vesh," Vex intoned formally, "you are charged with desecration of royal property and corruption of a noble bloodline. Sovereign Talon demands your immediate presence." Toran was marched through the palace, past whispering courtiers whose skin flickered with gossip patterns. In the throne chamber, Sovereign Talon loomed on a crystalline dais, his massive frame radiating cold fury. Beside him stood Krell, smugly victorious, and to the right, Elara, her face a careful mask, though her skin betrayed her with ripples of distress. "The evidence is irrefutable," Talon's voice resonated through the chamber. "This human has tampered with the sacred armor, creating an abominable bond with my daughter." "Father," Elara stepped forward. "The armor was damaged. I authorized the repair methods." "Silence!" Talon's skin flashed crimson. "The armor's readings reveal intimate contact, a violation of our most sacred laws. The human will be exiled to the Outer Rings." A gasp rippled through the assembly. The Outer Rings, volcanic wastelands where no one survived more than a few rotations. "If I may speak," Toran said, his voice steady despite his fear. "The armor was designed to forge connections, not prevent them." "Its original purpose? You presume to lecture me on Nyxaran artifacts?" Talon rose to his full height. "Your arrogance confirms your guilt." "It's not arrogance, it's truth," Elara's voice rang out. "The armor responded because it recognized compatibility. Our ancestors designed it as a bridge between species, not a barrier." The throne room fell silent. "Daughter," Talon's voice dropped dangerously, "you have been contaminated by human emotionalism." "No, father. I've been awakened to our history." Elara stepped down from the dais to stand beside Toran. "Check the ancient records. Before the isolation edicts, Nyxarans and humans worked together. This armor is proof." As if responding to her words, the ceremonial armor, which had been brought to the throne room as evidence, began to pulse with light. Filaments of crystal extended outward, creating patterns in the air that resembled ancient Nyxaran script. "What trickery is this?" Krell demanded, backing away. "Not trickery. Memory," Elara said. "The armor contains our true history." Talon's expression hardened. "Remove the human. Prepare him for exile. My daughter will undergo purification rituals immediately." As guards moved toward Toran, Elara did something unprecedented in Nyxaran history. She physically placed herself between them, making contact with multiple guards simultaneously. The resulting shock rippled through the assembly. "If he goes, I go with him," she declared. The armor responded to her defiance, suddenly flying across the room to encase her in its protection. When it settled, it had transformed, incorporating elements that seemed distinctly human in design alongside the Nyxaran crystal. "This concludes nothing," Talon said coldly. "Guards, separate them." But as the guards approached, the armor created a field around both Elara and Toran, where their hands joined. The energy was strongest, a visible manifestation of their bond that no Nyxaran weapon could penetrate. Forged bonds. 3 days passed with Elara and Toran contained in a high-security chamber. The armor never left them, maintaining its protective field while palace scientists studied the phenomenon from a safe distance. Nyxaran scholars were summoned from across the planet, bringing ancient texts and artifacts that hadn't been examined for generations. "The human must be right," admitted Elder Vosh, the most respected historian on Nyxara. "These patterns match our oldest records, from before the Great Severance." Sovereign Talon paced the observation deck. "Impossible. Our separation from humans has been our salvation." "With respect, Sovereign," Vosh's ancient voice quavered. Our records suggest otherwise. The Great Severance was not to protect us from humans, but to consolidate power among certain bloodlines, including yours. Below them, Ilara and Toran sat in quiet conversation, seemingly unconcerned by their imprisonment. The armor continued to evolve around them, creating complex structures that responded to their interactions. Sometimes it encased them both, sometimes it retracted entirely, but it always maintained connection points between them. Look at this reading, one scientist said, pointing to a display. The human's biochemistry is shifting toward Nixaran patterns, and the princess's is developing human characteristics. The armor is harmonizing them. On the 7th day, Sovereign Talon finally entered the chamber himself. The armor tensed but did not prevent his approach. You've created quite the diplomatic incident, he said to his daughter. Half the council demands the human's execution. The other half wants to study you both indefinitely. And what do you want, Father? Ilara asked. Talon's massive shoulders slumped slightly. I want to understand. Show me what you've discovered. Ilara looked at Toran, who nodded. She extended her hand to her father, an unprecedented gesture. After a moment's hesitation, Talon placed his much larger palm against hers. The armor responded immediately, extending filaments that connected father and daughter. Talon gasped as images flowed between them, ancient memories stored in the crystal, showing humans and Nixarans working together, building technologies neither could create alone. This cannot be hidden any longer, Talon finally said, withdrawing his hand. The alignment ceremony approaches. Decisions must be made. The following day, as all 3 of Nixara's moons aligned in their centennial configuration, the crystal court filled with nobles and dignitaries. Instead of the traditional ceremony reaffirming separation from other species, Sovereign Talon stood before his people with Ilara at his side, her armor now a seamless integration of human and Nixaran design. For generations we have embraced isolation. Talon's voice echoed through the vast chamber. Today, we acknowledge a different path. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as Toran was led in, no longer a prisoner, but dressed in ceremonial robes that complemented Ilara's armor. The ancient armors were not created to separate us from other species, but to help us connect despite our differences. Ilara addressed the gathering. They were bridges, not barriers. She extended her hand and Toran took it. The armor responded by creating a stunning display of light and crystal that expanded throughout the chamber, touching each attendee with tendrils of gentle energy. Feel what we have felt, Ilara said. Know what we have learned. One by one, the Nixarans experienced the connection, brief but profound. Some recoiled, but most were visibly moved by the experience. We propose a new beginning, Toran said, speaking formally to the assembly for the first time. Not a merging of our peoples, but a deliberate collaboration. What Ilara and I have discovered through the armor is just the beginning. Sovereign Talon stepped forward. The council will establish a new embassy with my daughter and this human as its first ambassadors. Their unique bond will serve as the foundation for a new era of cooperation. As the announcement concluded, Ilara turned to Toran, their foreheads touching in a gesture that was neither human nor Nixaran, but something new. They'll resist, she whispered. Change doesn't come easily. We have time, he replied, as the armor shimmered around them both, responsive to their shared hope. And we have each other. Above them, the 3 moons reached perfect alignment, bathing the crystal court in silver light that the armor caught and transformed into a spectrum no one on Nixara had ever seen before, a promise of possibilities yet to come.